Hey there, it's Faith Talk Live. I'm Dan Ratcliffe.
And I'm Ezra Ortiz.
Yeah, Ezra's not used to this because Rick is not with us today. He had to take his dad to a doctor's appointment. So Ezra, the lovely and talented Ezra Ortiz, is filling in so capably. And we're excited to be talking to Dr. Benny Tate, Pastor Benny Tate from Rock Springs Church in Milner, Georgia. Pastor, how you doing today?
Hey, listen, I am doing great, Dan. I've been looking so forward to being with you men, and it's just a great day.
And we were talking before we went on about your tie, and I was saying how much I love it. And you said it's a special tie. It's not just any green tie. This is a special tie. Tell us about it.
Well, it's a special tie because I've been the pastor here for 32 years. And for the first time this year, I was talking to Ezra. He got to experience this too. But I went to the Masters, and while I was over there, I wanted to get a good keepsake. So I purchased this tie from the Masters. So it's special to me for that reason, Dan.
Yeah, love it. It's a great tie. And apparently you had a good time while you were there at the Masters. It was a great experience for you.
Oh, I had a wonderful, wonderful experience. I mean, somebody said that's what heaven's going to look like. Well, you know, I believe heaven's going to look better, but
Probably so, yeah.
I had a great time, and again, it was a wonderful experience. And by the way, Scotty Scheffler, who won it, is a devout Christian who gave a strong testimony for Christ and was able to put on the green jacket this year and also give that testimony for Christ, which meant much.
Awesome. All right. Well, let's first, before we get into, we're going to talk to you about your book called Defy the Odds. But before that, let's talk about Easter. How was Easter at Rock Springs this year?
Easter was tremendous. I think our total numbers were a little over 12,000 people.
Wow.
But that wasn't the greatest number, Ezra and Dan. The greatest number is, to the best we can figure, about 160 people prayed to receive Christ.
Awesome.
Wow.
And hey, listen, it was emotional. Now, certainly any time that 160 people give their lives to Christ. But what was so emotional to me, Dan and Ezra, is 2 years ago, I preached in an empty building. Two years ago, I stood before a couple cameramen and preached. And so to be able to have, I think total we had 15 services in all of our campuses, 15 opportunities. So to have all those opportunities, buildings packed out, it was so encouraging.
Wow.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to talk to you about your book, Defy the Odds, how God can use your past to shape your future. Now, this just came out. Is that right? Did it just come out, or has it been out for a while?
Well, actually, it came out in March.
In March. Okay. So it's been out for a little bit.
Right.
So let's talk about, first of all, Defy the Odds. What's it about, and what do you want people to take from it?
Basically, I think if there's ever been a time that people need encouragement and hope, I believe it's today. And it's a book about, a part of the book is about my life. I was raised very dysfunctional, just from a very dysfunctional family, basically raised by an abusive stepfather who told me I was ignorant. He told me I was illegitimate. He didn't use that word, Ezra. He used another word.
Yeah.
I was recently gave this testimony on Life Today with James Robinson. And I said to James, James, he constantly told me I was illegitimate. He said, he didn't use, he used the B word, didn't he, Benny?
Yeah.
And I said over and over and over.
Wow.
And, basically told me I would never amount to anything. But through God and through some people God planted in my path, I was able to defy the odds. And it's about how people can defy the odds. And it was a great day, men, when I realized that God's not against me and God's not against you. God's for us. The scripture says, if God be for us. It was a wonderful, wonderful revelation in my life to realize that God is for me. And I want people to know that God is for them also. And I want them to know that they can defy the odds. Though we cannot go back and make a brand new start, we can begin right now and make a brand new end. And we don't have to be defined by our past. God's got a future for us. God's got a plan for us. And it's just an encouraging book about how people can defy the odds.
Yeah. That's great. And I think, just as you were talking a little bit about your story, unfortunately, you're not alone in a lot of probably what you experienced. So maybe just dive into a little bit of what you experienced in your upbringing that God then used to to, expand your ministry as you grew and all those kinds of things. Tell people a little bit more about, hey, your background.
Well, I'll be glad to, Ezra. As a young man, my mother spent one night with a man, and I was conceived. I mean, so in the world's eyes, I would be an accident.
Hmm.
I often say there are accidental parents, but there are no accidental children.
Mhm.
God had a plan for my life. God had a plan.
Yeah.
And I was raised by, as I say, by this stepfather who was physically, emotionally, mentally abusive. He would physically beat my mother. He would take his fist and he would hit my mother, and he would hit her in the face, and he would say things like, when I get through beating your face, no man will ever look at you.
Oh man.
No man will ever want you. That was the dysfunctional life that I was raised in. Through my mother, Ezra, actually going to commit suicide. Now, you're talking about getting low. You're talking about getting low. She was so low that she decided that life was not worth living. She put a pistol in her pocketbook purse. She drove to her first cousin's house that she had partied and caroused with many times, planning to end her life right there. She knocked on the door, Dan, and asked that first cousin, "Can I spend the night with you?" And that first cousin said, "Yes, you can. But I want you to know something. I'm not the person you used to know. I'm not the person that used to party with you and carouse with you. I've given my life to Christ.
Wow.
And more than anything, you need to give your life to Christ." My mother came on into the house. They talked a little while, and finally that first cousin said, "Can we call our pastor?" He was a 25-year-old pastor. I don't think he's in the ministry anymore. I think he had a bad experience and got out of the ministry. I'd love to be able to reach out and contact him and tell him the story of my mother.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd love to tell that pastor the story of the difference that he made in my mother's life, leading her to Christ. But my mother accepted Christ. I've often thought, man, the place where she went to end her life, she found life.
Yeah.
She found life.
For sure.
She came back home. She started praying for me through time. I eventually came to know Jesus Christ. And what is so wonderful, met my biological father when I was 30 years old. That was a unique meeting of just being able, it was a unique meeting to be able to do that. And what's so amazing, God's got a plan. Corrie ten Boom said, "There's no panic in heaven, only plans." And I just want people to understand, that God has a plan. We must live our life looking forward. We're going to understand life by looking back. But God has a plan. God's got a purpose. You don't have to be defined by your past. See, I've preached, Ezra. When I told you Easter, we had 160 people come to know Christ. I've spent all these years preaching out of what God can do with a life and what God can do with your pain and how God uses that pain to help others. And so what I would say to that person today that's, it seems like the odds are stacked against you. Don't give up. God's got a plan, and there's hope for you. There's hope for your life. Your best days are not behind you. Your best days are out ahead of you. And that's why when I take the book, Defy the Odds, when we take the book, I talked about my life. I talked about a church in the middle of nowhere. There's probably no church in America when the Associated Press reached out to us, Dan, they said we're the only church in America that has like 6 or 7 times the attendance of the population. They said there's no church in America that has a population of 600 people that, has thousands of people show up. But it's more of a testimony that you can defy the odds. So we talk a little bit, Ezra and Dan, about my life, the book, but I quickly move in the book that people can defy the odds. No matter what your situation, you can defy the odds in your life.
We're talking to Dr. Benny Tate, Pastor Benny Tate of Rock Springs Church, and the author of Defy the Odds, How God Can Use Your Past to Shape Your Future. And just what a great book. You can find out more details at PastorBennyTate.com. So what do you want readers to take away from that? And along with that, it's obviously with your mother and everything she went through, what you went through, how do people move past that victim mentality, which obviously it's very easy to get into and rightfully so in some cases, but how do you move past that and move toward God?
Well, I think it's a choice. Let me explain. I think it's a choice. I think it's a perspective. I often tell a little funny story about a little boy that lost a lens in his glass, Dan. He lost a lens, and he looked for hours, and he just couldn't find the lens in his glass for his glasses. And he finally goes to his mom and says, "Mom, I've lost one of the lenses in my glass." And she goes out in the yard, and just in a matter of moments, she finds it.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, "Well, Mom, how did you do that?" And she said, "Well, Johnny, you got to understand, you was looking for the lens in the glass and for the glasses, and I was looking for $300.
Wow.
And here's what I would say to a person, with a victim mentality. It's what you look at. It's what you look at. And I believe if you will look around you, you can also see God's hand. And you can see how God's brought people into your life, and you can see how God's provided for you and how God has taken care of you. See, it's all in what we look at. Death and life's in the power of the tongue. There's power in what you tell yourself. Listen, the most important words are not the words that somebody else says to us. The most important words are the words that we tell ourselves. Death and life is in the power of the tongue. You want to bring life to you bring life to your life by what you say, and you bring death to your life by what you say. So I would say that person that's got the victim mentality, what are you focusing on? What are you focusing on? It's so important that you focus on the proper things.
Yeah, that's great. So moving from that point, saying, hey, I love the scripture where it says, death and life is in the power of the tongue. What are maybe some other practical things that readers can take away from this book?
Oh, here's just practical things, is the practice of gratitude. I've often said the little line, from the day of your birth to the ride in the hearse, things are never so bad that they couldn't be worse. And I truly believe that if you practice gratitude, it's so imperative. Many times Ezra and Dan, even as parents, will say to our children, maybe somebody will do something for our child. Somebody gives our child a piece of candy or something, and we'll say to that child, now say thank you. You be sure you say thank you. But many times we don't say thank you. Many times, we're not grateful people. So it's the book is strong on just practicing gratitude in everyday life. We have so much to be thankful for. It's about your thinking. It's about gratitude. It's about relationships. It's just it's a book. See, I wanted to give people hope, because I am convinced what gives people resilience is when they have hope. And Napoleon said leaders are dealers in hope. Leaders are dealers in hope. And I believe one of the greatest things as leaders that we can give to people is we give people hope. And so it's a book about hope. It's a book about you can begin again. It's a book about the greatest journey in the world begins with one step, and you can accomplish much.
Defy the Odds is the name of the book, Pastor Benny Tate, and you can find it at PastorBennyTate.com. Anywhere else they can get the book?
Listen, you can go to Amazon or anywhere books are sold. The book, Dan, has done extremely well. I mean, the book has somewhat exploded. At one time, they said it was the top selling Christian biography for a period there. The top selling Christian biography. And what is so wonderful, it's if you said, "Hey, I'm looking for an academic book," no, this is not your book. I'm looking for an apologetic book. No, it's not your book. But if you're looking for a practical book with everyday wisdom, I think this is your book.
And it sounds like a book filled with hope. PastorBennyTate.com is where you can find more info. You can see a video about Pastor giving his testimony and much more. So check that out. Pastor Benny Tate from Rock Springs Church, thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate it.
Oh, it's been my privilege. God bless.
All right. You're watching Faith Talk Live. We'll have more in just a little bit. Ezra, thanks for joining us today and for
Glad to be here.
being Rick today. You've got the beard, just with a lot less gray in it. So we appreciate it. All right. That's Pastor Benny Tate. We'll be back with more. It's Faith Talk Live. Stay with us.